If you find that every time you open your social media account or every time you leave the house, you are just bombarded with people with families, pregnant bellies, and all these messages reminding you of something that you don't have, then this episode today is going to be really helpful for you. We are talking about triggers when you're trying to conceive and how these can send you into a spiral of stress and anxiety and just make your life a lot more difficult in the process. We're going to address why your triggers are getting in the way of building the life and the family of your dreams. And all that and more is coming up on today's episode. Welcome to your journey to fertility. This is the podcast that blends science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so that you can stop stressing that you'll never have your baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast. Welcome back to Your Journey to Fertility. I'm so happy to have you back here with me. And this episode is one I have been wanting to record for a while now because it's something that comes up a lot when I'm speaking with students. And I think that we can all relate to that feeling. Like you're in this place where literally the whole world is triggering you. Every time you open Instagram, there's another baby announcement. Every time you go to a dinner party or a catch up, your family and friends are saying stupid things and asking you when you're going to have children. It's just something that we all deal with. But there is something about struggling with infertility that sends you on this deep downward spiral. So we want to get you into a place where every stupid comment and every pregnant belly isn't completely throwing you sideways. Because when we are triggered, it does tend to have a flow-on effect. We find it hard to concentrate at work. We are short-tempered with our partners. We find it hard to sleep. We have these repetitive, recurring thoughts just going over and over in our minds. And it really impacts our ability just to get on with our life as normal. But healing triggers is actually going to take you a lot closer to being able to manifest the life and the family that you want the most. And the thing is, they can take you completely by surprise. I mean, we all know that there's that one friend or colleague who you just have a feeling is going to announce her pregnancy any day now, but sometimes something will trigger you and it feels like it comes out of nowhere. I remember a couple of months ago, I had hurt my knee and I'd gone to an ultrasound clinic to have a scan and they'd, done the scan for me. And I was waiting for them to give me the printouts of the scan so I could take it off to my physio. So I'm sitting in the waiting room and they said, it'll just be a minute longer. And I said, okay, thank you, but I've really got to get to my physio. My appointment's in 20 minutes. I really got to go. And they're like, no, it's okay. It's coming. Go and sit down. So I waited and the clock's ticking by. And then eventually someone's like, look, it's going to be another few minutes. Can you just go and pay for the appointment and we'll just get them to you as soon as we can? And I lost my mind. I had what can only be described as an adult tantrum. I got cranky. I was so upset. I started crying. I had to sit down. My heart was racing. Someone had to bring me a glass of water. Like, it was ridiculous. It really didn't fit the situation. And it came out of nowhere, and thought, I'm running late. I need to get to this appointment. They promised me this, and all of these things just kind of barrel rolled. That took me completely by surprise. And it is in these moments when we can start to recognize that a trigger has had an effect on us, that's when we can start to change our response and make our lives so much easier in the process. Now, all of what we're chatting about today works alongside the practices that I go through in detail with my students. A lot of what we're going to talk about in this episode links back to your ability to regulate your nervous system. And that is what the practices of fertility yoga, breathwork, and meditation are all about. So before we dive into everything, I just want to remind you that in 2 weeks' time, I am running a free 3-day live event online, which is going to introduce you to how these practices work and how they support your fertility, help synchronize your hormones, and ease the stress and anxiety of trying to conceive. So you can discover within this series for yourself how it really feels within your body, how much of a difference these practices can make. And this training series is ahead of the celebration to launch my signature course, which is called the In Your Element Fertility Yoga Program. This is the ultimate mind and body fertility reset, which is something I only open the doors to once per year. I like to keep the group size quite small so that I can give everyone as much individual attention as I can. So, which is why we only open it once a year. So I would absolutely love to have you join me for my 3-day live event. Ask me all the questions that you want to ask and then join me inside the program. I'm going to add a link down in the show notes to the waitlist, but you can also just visit elementpilatesyoga.com/waitlist and get your name down there. And I'll send you so many amazing extra details about the event that's coming up. So let's start. Let's start by asking exactly what is a trigger. So in psychology, a trigger is an experience or a stimuli that causes someone to relive a traumatic event or memory. And I know this idea of trauma is thrown around a lot, and it's something I've spoken about on previous episodes, but let me be clear. Infertility and pregnancy loss can be incredibly traumatic. And I don't want you to dismiss this in any way or let anyone else try to dismiss this for you. So when we see our pregnant colleague who, fell pregnant by accident for the 3rd time, or we hear our aunt asking why we haven't had a baby already, or, someone suggesting, why haven't you tried this? Or have you thought about that? It elicits a strong response physiologically within your body. I'm going to go through now my actual process for managing and healing triggers in the moment when your nervous system has this response. You go into panic, you go into overwhelm, your body is just full of anxiety. Because when we can recognize these triggers, we can make better decisions, more regulated decisions. The energy that you're in when you get triggered can stay with you throughout the day. And like I said, it has that flow-on effect. The way you speak to your partner, you show up at work, how you feel about the next steps on your fertility journey, all of that self-talk and those repetitive thoughts that come up, it really impacts you. So we're going to go through my 3-step process for managing and healing triggers. So step 1 is awareness. And this is everything when you're dealing with triggers. It is your ticket out of that downward spiral that a trigger will send you on. But don't get me wrong, this sounds simple, but it is anything but easy. But once you are able to become aware of those triggers, it helps to separate you from that external stimulus. It allows you to know, okay, hey, my nervous system is having a response right now. My body is having a reaction. And this is something that my brain is doing outside of my control. It is completely automatic. But like I said, it is so much easier said than done. Know that no good decision is going to come out of your response when you respond in that moment when you're triggered. Anything that you say or do in this moment is when you're in a state of fight or flight. You are hijacked by this response where whether you actually know that this is a life or death situation, your brain doesn't know that there's a difference. Your brain just thinks we've had a perceived threat, we've gotten, the stress response happening within the body, and we don't know that we're able to survive this. So we go into fight or we go into flight. So step 2, you need to step away and give yourself a moment. And this is hard. This is really hard. And you may only come to this realization that you need to step away after you have already reacted in the moment. Maybe you snapped at a friend who's trying to get you to go to a baby shower. Maybe your husband or your partner said something to you that's annoyed you, and you've just in the moment reacted and yelled at them or said something that you later on regret. Or maybe you've received an email from a boss or a colleague and you, without stopping to think about what you probably should respond, you just hit reply and you angrily type out a response. You send it straight away. So this is the fight response. When you feel threatened and your brain thinks that this is a threat, you go into survival mode. And it does sound extreme, but like I said, your brain doesn't know the difference. In this response, your blood flow and your energy goes away from your brain and into your limbs to get ready to fight. So you literally aren't thinking logically. That blood flow and circulation goes away from that prefrontal cortex. You don't have access to that critical thinking, that higher order thinking part of the brain. It has completely gone offline. So to be able to respond rather than react, so that you can have a real conversation, you can think more creatively, more calmly. This takes a moment for your brain to recognize that you're not in danger. Step 3 is to move that energy. The stress response builds up cortisol and adrenaline in your body, and if you don't find a way to disperse this energy, it will continue to circulate. So when we have this fight or flight response happening, we need to find a way to get this energy out, to allow your body to process that energy before you respond, so that you can come to that situation from a place of regulation rather than panic. So the best ways I find in order to move this energy are to go for a brisk walk, get outside, stomp, get your feet on the ground, just stomp, shake the body, shake out your limbs, your wrists, your arms, your head. Dance like a crazy person, like no one is watching. You might want to clench and unclench your fists, punch a pillow. All of these things just get energy out so well. And if you can, cry, let those tears out. And if you can and you feel safe in that moment to let that emotion out, do it. The other thing you can do is journal about it. And I know this takes a little more time and perhaps a little more planning, but get everything that's frustrating you out of your head and onto the page. And when you've done this, you need to ground yourself afterwards and really bring yourself back to that present moment. Because we really dissociate when we go into that panic, that state of fight or flight. We go into this spiral of everything's a mess. I'm never going to fall pregnant. This is so unfair. It's so easy for everyone else. Everyone around me is moving on with their lives and et cetera, et cetera. So you need to get out of your head. So once you've been able to disperse that energy, come back into that present moment. And the best ways I find to do this are to come back to your breath or to go through your 5 senses. What can I see around me? What can I feel? What can I hear? Are there any smells in the room? Is there anything I can taste? Now, how can you do this in the moment if someone is right in front of you? So, for example, if you're in a meeting at work or you're at a dinner party or at a restaurant, or whatever situation where it might not really be appropriate for you to start stomping around and punching pillows and looking like a little bit of a crazy person. So this is where we can come back to the breath. So if you don't have the opportunity at all to get out of that situation, just take a breath. And you can do it with me now. Just get into a place where you can take a deep breath in for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. And then exhale really slowly to a count of 8, all the way out. You can notice already the difference. Imagine doing that just 10 times. That will only take a minute or 2, but it will really bring you back to a place of regulation. If you are in that position where you can't really leave the situation, perhaps you could excuse yourself and go to the bathroom or just say, I've got to run back to my desk or grab something from my car. If there is any way that you can get alone, that is the best way to then just come back into that breath, bring yourself back to the present moment. So once you've gone through these 3 steps and, let's hope that you can remove yourself from the situation. You can just take a few moments to get that energy out, come back to the body. Then we want to come back to what that threat was. Come back to what triggered you. Give yourself at least 10 to 15 minutes and ask yourself, how do I feel now? If you're still noticing that acute stress response and you're getting highly triggered again, go back to releasing the energy. Go back to whatever it was that worked before, and then come back to those slow, deep breaths until you can absolutely say that you are ready to respond with calm and with control. And don't get me wrong, you don't need to get to the point where the trigger doesn't bother you. That is impossible, I think. Maybe not impossible, but when you are dealing with infertility and some of the just really hurtful and thoughtless things that people say and the things that you come across trigger you, I'm not saying that you need to get to a point where they don't bother you, because you are human. But if you can get to a place where you can just stop and go, okay, I'm having a response right now. I've become aware of that. I need to just remove myself from the situation before I respond to that text, before I pick up the phone and start getting angry at someone. Can I just go away and take a walk, breathe, then come back to it? And yes, it still bothers you, but how can we then come to a place of response rather than reaction? Now, it may be that there are deeper resentments underneath these triggers, and this is especially true if you find that something is a repeated trigger, like you always get into the same argument with your partner or your mum, or you dread seeing your boss's name come up on your phone when it rings. We tend to manifest the same problem over and over and over again. And this is where we need to go a bit deeper into what our subconscious is recognizing and what may have happened in the past, or what beliefs we're holding on to that are re-triggering you over and over again. And after that day where I lost my mind at the ultrasound reception waiting room, obviously I didn't do these 3 steps, and I did just react in the moment. And it usually is after the damage has been done. In hindsight, you look back and you go, okay, that response did not fit the situation. There is something else going on here that I need to do a little bit of digging through. So when I got home that day, I thought I need to take some time to really find out what that trigger was. And the more I journaled about it, the more I realized it took me back to my first IVF cycle. And I remember after every disappointing appointment, it ended up in me in the waiting room, being shipped over to the billing area, being asked to pay for treatments that weren't working. Just wait here, someone will be with you. We need to make another appointment. It was just this over and over again process that was soul destroying. And, of course, no one wants to go through a cycle of IVF and just be told, sorry, it hasn't worked, but, please pay us thousands of dollars. I'm sure that so many of us can relate to that. I had this deep down belief that I wasn't being heard. I wasn't important. It didn't matter. I didn't matter. And, when we're constantly in that state of nervous system dysregulation, it's so easy to get stuck back into these recurring thought patterns. So the day I was in the ultrasound waiting room, it triggered all of those memories and all of that flight or fight response that came up again. So I think that triggers are something that if we can reframe and look at from another perspective, can actually be incredibly helpful. And like I said, we don't need to like them. We don't need to want them in our lives. But if you can start to look at your triggers as these little gold nuggets of information to help make your journey of trying to conceive so much easier, I promise the more you do this work, the better your life will become. It isn't an overnight thing. It isn't a really quick or easy fix. Like a lot of this deep subconscious reprogramming and this manifestation work, it takes time, but it is worth it. Now, if you found this episode helpful, share it with someone. Leave a review if you haven't already. I love reading your reviews and just hearing all of your feedback. If you have any questions about this, you can always reach out to me anytime that you need. Now, just before we wrap up, remember, if you would like to start taking these practices a little bit deeper and you really want to explore how things like yoga, breathwork, meditation, All of these things, all of these mindset practices as well can really help you on your journey of trying to conceive. Jump on the wait list for my upcoming program. Again, the link is in the show notes. I am looking forward to seeing you there. Now, on the next episode of the podcast, I am speaking with a special guest who is going to be sharing her own personal journey of infertility and recurrent pregnancy loss. And she's going to be going through all the steps that she took to build her family after feeling like she would never get through it. I think if for anyone who is struggling on their fertility journey, this is an episode you won't want to miss. So until then, I am sending you all my wishes as you continue your own journey to fertility. The most common thing I hear from students who are on their fertility journey is that the stress of trying to conceive has taken over their life. Your days end up being filled with endless appointments, navigating pregnancy announcements. You're trying to eat right, take all your supplements, and it is all you think about from the moment you wake up. I designed the Element Fertility Yoga course to support your body, your mind, and your mental health in 3 important ways: to synchronize your hormones, increase circulation and blood flow, and to help regulate your nervous system. But on top of this, the greatest gift that you can give yourself throughout this journey is a sense of peace, to help you calm your mind and just make this process feel easier. Every single one of my students tell me that this is the first thing they notice after starting a yoga, meditation, and breathwork practice. But on top of this, you have the amazing benefit of actually supporting and increasing your fertility. Studies have shown that those participating in mind-body programs as they're trying to conceive have success rates 3 times greater than those who don't. The course I've designed walks you through natural conception as well as fertility treatments and IVF cycles. And the best part is you can work through it at your own pace in the comfort of your home. The practices start from just 10 minutes per day. To learn more, visit elementpilatesyoga.com or see the link in the show notes.